What's up, guys? Let's talk about quarantining some stuff. Look at that big old ball of algae. You guys are like, why? Why do you have a big ball of algae? That's why. Pretty cool. I'll get into this tank another day. But today we want to talk about quarantine. Apparently it's an issue. Nobody understands it. So let's explain it. Keep it simple. And with all the tanks I've got, it's important to quarantine. I don't want to blow all my tanks out. So there you go. Let's get into it. Look at that filthy thing. This is one of my quarantine tanks. It was the inverted tank in the 240. I just gotta clean it up. It's gonna sit next to that guy right there. Let's talk quarantine tanks though. There it is. It's 29 gallon. This is one of three. There's another one right there, a little 10 gallon. Another one right here. This one I use typically for a hospital tank when I need it. I didn't need it, but I did want it on the rack, so I stuck it back up here. Hospital tanks or quarantine tanks, whichever one you're going to use. First thing is bare bottom. Bare bottom is best, especially if you're quarantining, because when you get new fish, you get ick. Ick has a really hard time reproducing in a tank like this. Pretty simple theory. Ick will simply breed in your substrate, and once a little pod explodes, it's gonna boom. It's gonna have all these little babies swimming around, attached to your fish, feed, fall off. That life cycle basically starts all over again. So, excuse me. If I don't have a substrate, I still have the problem, but I don't have it as bad because they have nowhere to really multiply. And then when I do my water changes, taking care of it, obviously all I have to do is just vacuum the glass, and typically I'll get rid of the problem. When I'm quarantining fish, I typically don't have this in here. That usually goes down there. So when I'm quarantining, I do move these. The reason that these are up here is because I had a Severum sitting down there for a little while. Had to pull him out and put him back in the 240. Hospital tank, same kind of deal. I don't want a substrate, just want a blank canvas, something like that. I know it's hideous to look at. Why am I even showing you this? Well, because it is what it is. It's my hospital tank, so it sits in here. This is another hospital tank. If you do need substrate or quarantine, whichever, I use this for both. But if you do need a substrate for whatever you're doing, that's what I got. Alright, so let's talk about different fish here. Quarantining neon tetras. I get about an 80% survival rate with neon tetras. You guys can see there's a nice school in here. This is a 20 long. There's the placat. Say what's up, buddy?
Hi. Hi.
Little dude's over here just chilling. But anyway, I get about an 80% survival rate. Now, neon tetras is one of the hardest fish to keep in the hobby. And the reason that I get such good results with these is that I treat them with an antifungal medication. API makes a really good one. That's typically the one I use. And the biggest thing that'll kill these guys when you first get them from the pet store is going to be a mouth fungus, otherwise known as cottonmouth. And if you can get on it right away, you take care of the problem. And then, just a general cure after that. Something else that I do that's pretty important is I quarantine these guys here. They quarantined, I think, for about 6 weeks, just to make sure that they were absolutely perfect before they got moved. That's another key thing. So, neon tetras, that's how you keep them alive. General cure, and give them a fungus treatment, and keep that treatment going. As soon as you get them, put them in the tank. Do both of those things, and that will keep your survival rate up. Now, the acidity of the water is typically the biggest issue with neon tetras. So when you have a high pH like I do here, it's 7.8 out of the tap. Sometimes 8.2, which is really high. It's hard to keep neon tetras. I've actually bred these. I take all these plants and I move them into a corner. And very simply, I would just take, every 30 days, I take all these fish out, put them in a different tank, like this one or whatever, that one, whatever tank I want to put them in. And I let this tank sit for 30 days. Now, if I have eggs, those eggs will hatch and I wind up with more neon tetras. Pretty cool. Breeding neon tetras is not easy. It's not something that you would want to do for fun, because it's not. But anyway, keeping those guys alive, that's how we do it. So, let's talk about another group of fish here. Alright, so you just went to the store, you got a bunch of guppies. You have a high death rate in your guppies. You can't figure out what's going on. We're going to quarantine these fish for 4 weeks. We're going to give them a round of your general cure. Marineland makes one and API makes one. They're both equally, I don't know, effective, I guess you could say. So if you want to treat these fish and have a high success rate, get them in the tank and, you know, do that. Just treat them with the general cure. That's going to help you out. So, guppies, really simple. Pretty much every other fish that I get is going to get a general cure. One specific fish that you want to make sure you're giving that general cure to is puffers. Doesn't matter if it's pea puffers, fajakas, whatever. Any puffer that you're going to get, make sure that you're giving it that general cure. Simply because 50% of them are going to have tapeworms, because like 85 or 90% of them are wild caught. So, general cure for all your tetras, guppies, and puffers. Extremely important. And if you want to keep neon tetras alive, give them that fungal cure, and you'll have great luck with tetras. So you can't have cherry shrimp like those guys back there, all hanging out having a meeting. They're not going to work with some of these medications, so just be careful and watch what you're doing. Alright, now if we move on to cichlids. Look at that beast. That's the female dovi. So she has only ever known this tank. This is the only tank she's been in. So I've had her, I think, for what, 2 months now, something like that. And she's doing really well. This is the female. The male's in a separate tank by himself, different room. They are going to go in together here pretty soon. Male is much smaller than the female. So yeah. Alright, so let's talk about quarantining cichlids. I would not medicate cichlids at all, any of them, unless you're getting like rams. You want to do like a general cure with those. But beyond that, you really don't need it. Just keep pristine water. Keep your water straight. You don't want bad water. You want to make sure that you're doing your water changes 25% a week, and staying on top of these guys. These guys you're going to want to monitor, 4 to 6 weeks, just to make sure that you don't have any problems. And I wouldn't medicate them unless you have a problem that you need to medicate. Typically you're going to see ick when you get cichlids in. That's probably the most common with them. But beyond that, cichlids are pretty easy. And so, quarantine tanks themselves, you can see I run 1, 2, this one's my hospital tank. If I ever need to use one of these 10 gallons, boom, we go to this tank. That filter in the back hanging up is the actual filter for this tank. That little sponge filter right there is simply my backup. So I know it's cycled, I know it's ready to go. If ever I need be, I just take it out, boom, put it in here, put some water in this thing, keep it about the temp, you don't want to screw up your temperature. And this thing's ready to go. Got a heater ready for it. Everything's set. So if I ever need a cycled filter, all I have to do is just pull that bad boy out and boom, hospital tank's ready.
You sound like a robot.
That's right. I got a filter running back there. I ghost feed this tank. So by ghost feeding this tank, it's pretty simple because I keep my cycle going. Fish food rots, keeps the cycle going. some of the meds that I keep around. This one, I had the fungal cure in the other room.
Sponsors.
This one right here, I know there's a lot of API stuff going on here, but it's most common around me. Stress coat. Guys, I cannot tell you how many fish this thing has saved. I had some fish that were just near death, and a little bit of stress coat in the tank, and they've come back. Now, these aren't my fish. These are fish that, you know, I've gone and picked up from somebody. Their tank busted, and they've been sitting there in a bowl for hours. And I just recently went through that with a couple of Mbunas that aren't in this tank anymore, but they were. They lived in here for about 2 days. And that's that. Other food. Yeah. Anyway, guys, if you have any questions about quarantining, how to do it, what medications you'll need, leave the questions in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe at the button right there. And I was going to say bye. You want to say bye, pretty one? You want to say bye? How about we focus on you?
I'll say bye.
Oh, it's a flame tail. So pretty. Alright, guys. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.